An embarrassing 4-0 defeat to the ice-cold Anaheim Ducks last night, and on today's episode, I'll discuss Arvid Soderblom's continued struggles in net and a few other prospects worth considering in the 2024 NHL Draft. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. And make sure to also go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account as well at Talkin' Hockey. So that way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, quick reminder, like, comment, subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. If you're tuning in through Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, whatever audio podcast frequency, make sure to be downloading all of the latest episodes, rate and review the show as well. And I also got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Make sure to go and download the Game Time app right now, and when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off to the sporting events, concerts, or theater events near you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. A lowly 4-0 loss for the Blackhawks last night against the Anaheim Ducks, a Ducks team in which had lost 7 games in a row going into this one. And they kind of took it to the Blackhawks all night long. A pretty sad performance by the Hawks, following up on an underwhelming showing once again against the Los Angeles Kings to kick off this 3-game road trip. And yeah, it was pretty bad from start to finish last night. The first period continues to be a problem for the Blackhawks. If you go and look at the box score from the game, you'll see the Hawks actually had a 13-7 shots on goal advantage in the opening 20 minutes, but none of them were very high danger opportunities. Most of those shots came in the final few minutes when the Blackhawks actually started to get going, but it certainly felt like the Ducks were dominating puck possession and cycling a lot in the offensive zone, and the Hawks early on were having struggles getting out of their own end and just couldn't generate much on the offensive side of things. But that was probably, as sad as it is, the best period that the Blackhawks had last night. The middle frame, an absolute disaster. It's when things went from bad to worse. Blackhawks not only allowed 3 goals, but they also took 3 penalties of their own as well. A couple of them you can debate. I didn't think the officiating was very good last night, but then again, neither were the Blackhawks, that's for sure. With or without taking those penalties, it was still not a very good performance. And to get shut out by Lucas Dostal and the Anaheim Ducks, his first shutout of his NHL career, pretty sad one for the Blackhawks. But they also got outshot 12-7 in the middle frame. And on the opening goal that the Ducks scored, a beautiful redirect by Alex Killorn, but it felt like the Blackhawks didn't bounce back whatsoever and didn't really have any fight or resiliency like we've seen so far in the month of March when they've had a bad opening 20 minutes or have fallen behind early in the second period. In their wins this year, and especially against some of the lower competition that they've seen on the schedule, they've been able to kind of stay in the game, generate some momentum, and then swing things back in the other direction. That didn't happen whatsoever against the Ducks last night. Fell behind 3-0 after 40 minutes, and that was basically the nail in the coffin for the Hawks. Even with the Ducks being as bad as they are, pretty insurmountable lead for what the offense was looking like last night. And to add insult to injury, the Ducks would go on to add a 4th goal late in this one to seal the deal. A 4-0 loss for the Chicago Blackhawks at the Honda Center. It's the 11th time that they've been shut out this season. As I mentioned off the riff, the second time that they've been blanked in a 6-day stretch. And they've also now been outscored 10-2 combined in the opening 2 games of their West Coast road trip. Not the momentum that they wanted to establish here after playing some pretty good hockey to kick off the month of March and winning 4 of their last 6 games before departing out west. But honestly, not a ton of takeaways takeaways that I have from this one. Connor Bedard, even with a rather quiet performance, led all Blackhawks forwards with 4 shots on goal, did have 2 penalties in this one, and you could see the frustration on his face with some of these calls. I, again, did not really think it was a good night for the officials, but not a good night for basically anyone on the Blackhawks offense. Lucas Reichel, I thought, had a couple of noticeable bursts once again, and it just seems like he's having good energy. There's good pep in his step out there, so at least there's that. Not really getting anything in terms of production over the last 2 games since he picked up a primary assist in his return back to the NHL, but at least the effort level seems to be consistent through these first 3 games, and hopefully that'll lead to some more points on the board from not only whatever line he's on, which I like to see. He was on the second line once again, along with Andreas Athanasiou in this game, but hopefully it will lead to the finished product for that line and for the Blackhawks offense moving forward. But maybe the most noteworthy moment in this game last night, Blackhawks fans, was when Alex Vlasic accidentally collided with Leo Carlsson in the Ducks offensive zone, in the Blackhawks defensive zone. Clearly was incidental knee-on-knee contact. 2 guys just going through the center of the ice at a high speed and didn't see one another. And unfortunately, Leo Carlsson wound up getting the worst of that contact, and you could see immediately it was like he knew it wasn't good. He was swinging his stick out of frustration, down on the ice in some pain. Yeah, man, a tough moment to watch there for the player that obviously went number 2 in the 2023 NHL draft behind Connor Bedard. Kind of shockingly, I personally did not anticipate the Ducks passing up on Adam Fantilli, but when healthy this season, Leo Carlsson has looked like a very effective player, but that's kind of been a problem for him already, as he's missed a couple of stints due to injury this year. Hopefully this one, for his sake, for Ducks fans' sake, isn't as serious as it looked, but yeah, definitely a scary moment there. And to see Carlsson not being able to put any weight on his foot was definitely tough to watch. But what was even tougher to watch was Alex Vlasic having to answer the bell for that hit when it was clearly an accident. Like, Alex Vlasic was not meaning to go knee on knee with the Ducks' top prospect in their organization. You could tell it totally caught him by surprise if you watch the replay. And to have to go and drop the gloves with Ryan Strome there in the third period, I thought was absolute crap. And like, just a poor recognition of the circumstances by the Anaheim Ducks. I get what Leo Carlsson means to that organization, and how big of a talent he is, and his potential is through the roof. I understand all of that, and I understand sticking up for your teammates, but Alex Vlasic is not a dirty player. That was not a dirty hit, and he clearly did it on accident. So that certainly rubbed me the wrong way. I was not happy to see a young kid like Alex Vlasic have to go and drop the gloves for something like that. Rather unfortunate. Jared Tenorti, that's the guy who, we had in the lineup to drop the gloves. He actually did that, and that's why Richardson had him in the lineup, anticipating this was going to be a little bit of a chippier game following what went down last week at the UC, where we almost got the John Gibson versus Peter Mrazek scrap. But yeah, I thought that was total crap that Strome made Vlasic himself have to be the one to answer. No one else on the Blackhawks. I thought that was pretty crummy, to be honest. But another takeaway that I have to talk about is Arvid Soderblom's continued struggles, man. I didn't think he was the culprit last night. I don't really think you can blame the goaltender when the Blackhawks got shut out once again, but it's still pretty apparent that he just can't put together a complete 60-minute effort without giving up a softie or two. The first goal, Alex Killorn, a beautiful redirect, not much that he could do there. And I'll even give him the benefit of the doubt, despite some people giving him some gripe. On the Brett Leeson goal, he shot it through Tenorti's wickets, and it was a wicked wrister. Yeah, he might have to save that one, but it was tough for him. And for a young goaltender, I don't think you can expect him to make a save like that time and time again. But the third goal certainly wasn't all that great. Neither was the fourth by Vetrano in the third period. But at that point in time, didn't really matter. The game was already over. But it's now back-to-back bad ones for Soderblom after tallying 2 consecutive wins for the first time in the NHL. So still no reason for the Blackhawks to feel all that confident about him moving forward. And I really do wonder, how he's going to finish out the course of this season. It's going to be really crucial for his future, and I'm rather interested to see how the Blackhawks are going to respond to it one way or another. Are they going to bring in a potential veteran on a minimum contract to make Soderblom have to battle it out for the number 2 job next season? Are they going to re-sign Jackson Stauber, who's been running hot right now down in Rockford? He is going to be an RFA, though, at the end of the season. Do they think about bringing him back and maybe having him compete with Soderblom for the number 2 job in training camp? It's not going to be Drew Commesso. He still has to go through some development. I don't think he's NHL ready, but really curious as to what's going to happen with Soderblom down the stretch of the season and what the Blackhawks are going to be doing this offseason in goal. Are they going to give Soderblom another chance? It feels like they almost have to start thinking in another direction based on just the body of work that he's put together all season long. Even when he's gotten wins, it hasn't really been because he's stolen the game. It's mostly been because that was one of those rare nights where the Blackhawks offense rarely showed up. So another tough night for Arvid Soderblom. I don't think he was the culprit or the reason why the Blackhawks lost this game, but still another subpar performance, stopping just 21 of the 25 shots that he faced. All right, there are my thoughts on the Blackhawks. Rather embarrassing 4-0 loss to a Ducks team that had lost 7 games in a row coming into that one. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'm going to get into some of the Hawks' top prospects playing meaningful games over the weekend in college hockey. But first, I need to talk to you all about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into MVP and to bring home that win. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Segment 2, some meaningful games for a couple of Blackhawks prospects playing college hockey over the weekend, and we're closing in on conference championships here, and of course that means the NCAA tournament is right around the corner as well, and with the Blackhawks not really having much to play for other than the Macklin Celebrini sweepstakes down the stretch of the year here. I personally enjoy keeping up with all of these prospects and how they're doing, and I also think it's important to let all of you know out there, all of you great Blackhawks fans, how some of these potential pieces of the puzzle here in the Blackhawks rebuild are doing in their current season. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get on into it. First, Frank Nazar and the Michigan Wolverines are going to be taking on the Michigan State Spartans. Not only do the Michigan State Spartans have a very meaningful basketball game tomorrow against the North Carolina Tar Heels, but they'll also be playing Frank Nazar and Michigan for the Big Ten championship game as Michigan looks to get their 3rd consecutive Big Ten title. And Frank Nazar has been a huge part of their success this season, bouncing up and down between the top 3 forward lines. But regardless of what trio he's been with, he's made his impact felt all over the place. 37 points in 37 games this year, 14 goals and 23 assists, a very successful sophomore campaign. He's been spectacular. The playmaking, the vision, the ability to create in transition, and also pairing that with the energy that he provides in playing a full 200-foot game at the center ice position. I've been really impressed with what Frank's done at Michigan. I've really been impressed with what he did at the World Juniors to help the United States win the gold medal there. He was a focal point of that team, and because of that, feels like he's trending in the direction to make the leap to professional hockey whenever he does wrap up his sophomore year. But us Blackhawks fans are going to have to wait for that. Even if he doesn't win the Big Ten title this weekend against Michigan State, the Wolverines are expected to still be in the NCAA tournament. They currently sit 10th in the NCAA rankings. So depending on how long Michigan's run is in the tournament will dictate how many games of action Frank the Tank could potentially get if he does wind up making the leap to the NHL. It could potentially only be like 6 or 7 games. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I think it is worth mentioning that most of the Blackhawks beat kind of feels like he is going to be joining with the Blackhawks. I do also want to mention that Sam Rinzel, Oliver Moore, and the Minnesota Golden Gophers lost last weekend to Frank Nazar and the Michigan Wolverines in the Big Ten semifinals. However, while that is an underwhelming result for what they wanted going into the tournament, they're still going to be in the big dance, still going to be making the NCAA tournament. Minnesota currently sits number 8 in the NCAA rankings, so we'll be seeing Sam Rinzel and Oliver Moore on the big stage in the NCAA tournament unless something absolutely dramatic happens. But moving out east, Ryan Green, Macklin Celebrini going to be the number 1 overall selection in the 2024 NHL Draft, and the Boston University Terriers are taking on Maine here this evening in the Hockey East semifinal. The winner of that game will be playing in the Hockey East Championship game tomorrow night, and all year long, Ryan Green has been locked into that second-line center position behind Macklin Celebrini, and it's been another productive sophomore campaign, another productive underclassman campaign out of Ryan Green. 9 goals and 22 assists for 31 points through 35 games so far this year. Funny enough, that's actually the exact same stat line that he put up in 38 games last year as a freshman. 9 goals and 22 assists for 31 points. Hopefully he'll be having a big tournament to eclipse that number this year, and you can also expect to see Boston University in the NCAA tournament, currently ranked 2nd in the NCAA rankings, one of the top teams in all of college hockey. And I think it's worth mentioning that Macklin Celebrini kid, because there's going to be a lot of conversations about him on this show leading up to this year's draft. Still the leading scorer in all of college hockey at 17 years old. It is incredible what he's able to do and what a shot this kid possesses. 30 goals in 33 games. To pair that up with 25 assists, as I mentioned, the leading scorer in all of college hockey right now, over a couple of other freshmen playing for Boston College, another top team in all of college hockey, and Will Smith and Gabe Perreault, 2 high first-round selections in last year's draft also. Going to be rather interesting to see Boston University on their quest to a national championship and a Hockey East championship, potentially, if they can get over Maine here this evening. And then last but certainly not least, Aiden Thompson and the Denver Pioneers are also one of the top teams in all of college hockey, currently number 3 in the NCAA rankings. So you'll be able to see Aiden throughout the NCAA tournament as well. But they're playing in the NCHC semifinal this evening against St. Cloud State. I don't believe Dominic Bassi is the one getting the start in net, as he's been on a little bit of a schneid here over the last couple of months. But the winner, like Ryan Green, Macklin Celebrini, and BU in the Hockey East, the winner of this NCHC semifinal matchup will play in the championship game tomorrow evening. As far as how things have been going for Aiden Thompson this year, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little bit underwhelmed with the numbers that he's put up, especially after being nearly a point-per-game player for a really good Pioneers team last season. Only has 28 points, 11 goals, and 17 assists in 38 games during his sophomore campaign, but don't forget he spent a couple years time playing in the USHL, so Aiden Thompson is already 22 years old, and to be well under a point per game after what he did last season, I'm rather disappointed, especially because when I've seen him at Blackhawks development camps, probably because of his age, but he's just a much more matured player and thinks the game really highly, makes heads up little plays in transition, and can play at a high pace. I was rather impressed with him, but it's been a little bit tougher for him so far this year, but hopefully he can close out the year on a high note to help the Pioneers as well in their quest for a national championship. All right, there is an update on all of the Blackhawks prospects playing major college hockey down the stretch here. Coming up in just a moment, I still have to get into part 2 of my 2024 NHL Draft Rankings. But first, I got to talk to you all about Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, and that's why you all got to get Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets to all the sports, comedy, music, and theater events near you. And I personally have been using Game Time for probably close to a decade at this point, since I was back in high school going to see Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, and all those Blackhawks greats in their glory day during the Dynasty era, or even when I'm, still going down to Wrigley Field to watch a Cubs game during the summer months, or if I'm traveling and in another city and want to go see a comedy event or want to go and see a concert. Game Time is always the first place that I check because it's the easiest way to purchase tickets, it's the fastest way to purchase tickets, and it's the cheapest way to purchase tickets as well. And I also personally love how they show you views from every seat before you purchase the ticket, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app right now, and when you do, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first purchase. Yes, you heard me right. You can get $20 off to come and see Connor Bedard at the United Center before the end of the season. All you have to do, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, if you're still tuned into this point of the episode, let me just say thank you very much. I really do appreciate all of your support. And if you can help me out by smashing the like button, commenting down below, and subscribing to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel, that would be just lovely. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, segment 3. What I wanted to get into here today, I know it's been a little bit since I've talked about some of the top prospects in the 2024 NHL Draft. Many of you might not even remember part 1 of this series. Like I said, it was a couple of weeks ago, but I broke down the consensus top 10 prospects in the 2024 NHL Draft. According to Corey Pronman, oh my gosh, I'm completely forgetting who all of them were. Hold on. I'm going to look this up real quick because it's going to drive me crazy. Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler, Bob McKenzie. Who was the fourth? And Chris Peters. There we go. I broke down their consensus top 10 players in the 2024 NHL Draft, and I also went through all 4 of their individual top 10 lists to just kind of compare them to one another, see where everyone has all of these guys in the top 10 ranked. Personally, I'm not going to be going through all 4 of those guys' lists here today, but what I did want to do is go through their consensus rankings of numbers 11 through 20. And if I'm being honest with everyone out there, I'm certainly more familiar with the top 10 prospects or the top 10 projected players in this year's draft more than I am with the depth players, but we're starting to get towards the summer months. This is really when I'm going to be diving headfirst into all of these prospects, and I'm going to be doing player profiles on everyone who's projected to go in the first round. I'm also going to be having a mock draft. I know people are wanting this stuff right here, right now, but I just don't have enough information on all of these guys to properly give my assessment, but don't worry, that's going to be coming. But I do want to go over this live here on the show so we can kind of learn a little bit more about some of these guys together. I think that would be fun, and also informal or important information to know about some of these players before we start to close in on the draft. But before I get into numbers 11 through 20 on these 4 guys' consensus rankings, I do want to go through a reminder of who they had in their top 10. Coming in at number 1, of course, Macklin Celebrini. No surprise there. He is going to go number 1 overall. Numbers 2 through 10 is really a toss-up at this point in time. It differs depending on who you're asking, and that's why this year is such an intriguing draft. It's absolutely not as deep as last year's or the 2025 NHL draft, but there's just a lot of guys who could go in certain spots. No one's really sure about anything after Macklin Celebrini goes number one. So, depending on who you're listening to or who you're reading, these rankings are going to be different for everyone. But number 2 is Artem Levshunov, freshman for Michigan State, going to be taking on Frank Nazar tomorrow in the Big Ten title game. Number 3 is Anton Silayev, the big left-handed defenseman playing over in the KHL. Number 4 is Ivan Demidov, a real high-ceiling potential player that's, been in consideration for the top 5 for a long time. Number 5 is Caden Lindstrom, big power forward playing up in the CHL. Cole Iserman is number 6, guy who was long considered to be the player that was going to go number 2 after Macklin Celebrini, or even the guy that was going to push him the most to be in consideration for the top overall selection. Been a little bit of an underwhelming year for Iserman, but he's kind of gotten it going more like himself here as of late. Sam Dickinson comes in at number 7. Berkeley Catton comes in at number 8. Zane Parekh, high goal scoring defenseman, comes in at number 9. And then Carter Yakimchuk comes in at number 10. So here we go. Getting into number 11 on these 4 guys' consensus rankings is Konsta Helenius, a 5'11", 180-pound center who turns 18, later on this spring in May. In this season, he's tallied 36 points in 51 Liga games in Finland at 17 years old. Rather impressive. 14 goals and 22 assists. He also played for Finland at the 2023 World Junior Championship. Some of you may remember the preview that I did of the players that Blackhawks fans should be watching during the World Junior Championship. Not only was Macklin Celebrini on that list, Konsta Helenius was someone that I had on there, but he had a little bit of a disappointing tournament. Only 2 points, 1 goal, and 1 assist in 8 World Junior games, and that probably didn't help his stock, and that's probably why he sits on the outside of the top 10 right now, but still a very impressive season with what he's doing as a teenager still in one of the top professional leagues outside of the NHL. Really interested to break down Konsta Helenius further later on this year. Zeev Buim comes in at number 12, and I'm absolutely in love with this kid. He's a 6 foot, 185-pound left-handed defenseman who turned 18 back in December. And in his freshman campaign for the University of Denver, a teammate of Aiden Thompson, going to be trying to win the NCHC here over the weekend before going into the NCAA tournament. He's had a phenomenal freshman year, and every time I watch him, I fall in love with his game more and more and more. A lot of speed, a lot of razzle-dazzle, can dip and duck his way through traffic, can lug the puck up ice, carry it for a while in the offensive zone, run a power play. I really, really like his game. 44 points in 36 games during his freshman campaign, 9 goals and 35 assists. He only had 5 points in 8 games, 3 goals and 2 assists for Team USA at the World Juniors, but I did think he was one of their most impactful players, particularly in those medal games to help them win gold. He was excellent, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if someone took a chance on Zeev Buim inside the top 10. Coming in at number 13 is Trevor Connolly, a 6'1", 165-pound winger who turned 18 a month ago in February, currently playing in the USHL for the Tri-City Storm and has tallied 65 points, 26 goals, and 39 assists in 46 USHL games, and he's going to be a freshman at the University of Providence next year, where I believe Tage Harding will be a senior. I don't see him foregoing his senior campaign. So Trevor Connolly likely to be a teammate of current Blackhawks prospect Tage Harding next season. Coming in at number 14, Adam Jiricek, the little brother of former top 10 selection David Jiricek, prospect for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Adam is also a right-handed defenseman at 6'2", 170 pounds, one of the younger blue liners in this year's draft, as he doesn't turn 18 until June. And he had 1 point in 19 Czech games this year, was playing pro hockey in the Czech Republic until he suffered a season-ending injury at the World Junior Championship. Only got to play in 1 game there as well, costing him the rest of his season, which is going to make it rather intriguing as to who's going to be taking a gamble on Adam Jiricek after tearing his ACL in his draft year. Would honestly be shocked if he winds up going as high as number 14. At number 15, another guy that played in the World Junior Championship, Michael Brandtzæg Nygaard, who played for Team Norway. He's a 6'1", 200-pound winger with a lot of speed. Turned 18 back in October, so a little bit older than some of these other guys. He's tallied 18 points, 8 goals, and 10 assists in 41 games in the Hockey Allsvenskan League in Sweden, considered to be the second best professional league over there. And as I mentioned, played in the World Juniors for Norway. They didn't really go anywhere, but in 5 games worth of action, Brandtzæg Nygaard had 5 points, 3 goals, and 2 assists, and rather looked the part. I would honestly be guessing, I'm not as familiar with him as I am, like I said, with some of the higher end selections, but I do recall talking about him leading into the tournament. And from what I saw, his productivity and what he displayed there, I think he's probably going to go higher than Adam Jiricek, considering the injuries. Coming up next at number 16 is Tij Iginla, 6 foot, 185-pound forward who turns 18 in August. One of the youngest players in this year's draft for sure, maybe even the youngest. And of course, he's the son of NHL legend, Calgary Flame captain for a long, long time, Jarome Iginla, one of my favorite players growing up. And just a reminder that I am now getting very old. But Tij has 83 points in 62 WHL games this year, 47 goals in 36 assists. Seems like he got his dad's goal scoring ability. Really interested to see where he's going to end up going in this year's draft. At number 17 is Emil Hemming, who also played in this year's World Junior Championship. A 6'2", 195-pound winger, turns 18 in June, and he's also playing in Finland's Liga, just like Konsta Helenius is. He's tallied 7 goals and 4 assists for 11 points in 40 Liga games, and tallied 2 assists in 7 games at the World Junior Championship for Team Finland. So kind of like Konsta Helenius as well, didn't really have the best tournament to help out his draft stock. Coming in at number 18 is Igor Chernyshov, a 6'2", 195-pound winger, turned 18 back in November and has bounced between the MHL and the KHL over in Russia this year. Played a decent amount of games, though, in the KHL, 34 in total, putting up 4 points, 3 goals, and 1 assist. But as an 18-year-old, it's not like you expect the productivity to be all that crazy, and he was well over a point per game while playing in the MHL as well. The Russian prospects are always fascinating because a lot of them do play professionally at a young age, but there's always that question as to whether or not they're going to come over to North America. Blackhawks, have dealt with that problem with a couple of different guys. They're dealing with it now with Roman Kanserov. I personally kind of like to stay away from them unless you're absolutely wowed, especially after using a high round selection on Roman Kanserov last year. Number 19 here is Liam Greentree, 6'2", 200-pound winger that turned 18 years old on New Year's Day, and he has been a beast for the Windsor Spitfires this year as their captain. 88 points in 62 games worth of action, 35 goals and 53 assists. Looks like a good goal scorer and a good playmaker as well. And then rounding things out is Sasha Boivay, 6'2", 180-pound center. Boivay. Sasha Boivay. I was trying to remind myself if I was saying that correctly because going into this episode, I watched a couple of videos, so I didn't want to butcher his name. Really important to me. Anyways, 6'2", 180-pound center, turned 18 a few days ago, actually, here on March 18th. And he's tallied 55 points, 30 goals, and 25 assists in 53 USHL games for Muskegon this year. And he's going to be a freshman at the University of North Dakota, one of the most prestigious programs in all of college hockey. So there are the next 10 names in the consensus 2024 NHL Draft Rankings between Chris Peters. Oh my gosh, this is going to kill me again. Chris Peters, Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler, and Bob McKenzie. There it is. I'm going to be going through numbers 21 through 32 here probably in a couple of days, and then I'm going to start getting into individual player profiles. So keep a lookout for those episodes coming here soon. Make sure to subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks podcast so you don't miss out on those. And also make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Even if you're someone who watches the shows on YouTube day in and day out, it would really help me if you could just go and follow the show, download all of those latest episodes, rate and review if you'd like as well, or you could just do that in the comment section below. But as always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can follow me on X at Jack Bushman too, and make sure to check out my Strictly Blackhawks account as well at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, everyone out there, enjoy your weekend. That's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.